Attractions Group podcast. This is the first ever breaking news episode, so it's out of our normal order, but this is episode 73. I'm Ryan Sir. With me, as always, is Don Helbig. Don, didn't expect to see you today. How are you doing?
Yeah, I didn't expect to see you either, but big news out of Cincinnati, Ohio, with the news that Coney Island will permanently cease operations on December 31st following the conclusion of Coney Island's Nights of Lights holiday event.
Yeah, I heard that too. And this news is breaking. We are getting information as it comes. As of this recording, this was released within the last hour or so. But it appears that the this essentially the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, so MEMI Concerts, uh, purchased the facility, and they're going to build a what they want to consider the best concert venue in the world. It's going to be $118 million, but at least it's going to be held in entertainment, Don, right?
That's right, and it's being called a one-of-a-kind entertainment campus, according to a press release that we've been able to look at. Coney Island, though, I mean, just iconic. Been around since 1886. A Sunlight Pool, which was pretty much all that was left of Coney Island, was added in 1925. So just a lot of history, a lot of tradition, a part of so many families' lives in Cincinnati. It's all going to be gone.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with a cruel swiftness in a lot of cases. Let me ask you this though, and this is anytime, like in the last hour or so, when people have asked me what my thoughts were on this, I've always said once they remove the rides, this was a matter of time. Are you on the same page with me with that?
Oh, absolutely. I thought as soon as the rides were gone, it lasted a few more years, and I thought it would. I know COVID was very hard on that park. Um, Never really seemed to recover from that. But they had, added a few new things around Sunlight Pool and had some different activities and things. And I had plans to add a few more smaller things that were going to be coming in. So, you want to say you're surprised, but you're not.
I mean, it's kind of like as much as I hate to make this analogy, but it's like when your grandma dies. Like you knew that day was going to happen, but it doesn't feel real when it does. You know, you have the
No,
same shock
I
and
mean,
awe.
for me, Coney Island kind of, was gone in 1971 because the Coney Island that I knew as a child left when those rides and everything moved up to become Kings Island, and it was just never the same. They always had the pool there, and in the 70s, we'd go a couple times a year and just go to Sunlight Pool. Then they added some rides back in, but they were, more of the family flat rides. There weren't roller coasters or the haunted house. The rides again that I remembered as a child. So it was never the same, but it was still a nice venue. It was great for company picnics. And when those companies did, have an outing there, there were those smaller family type rides for everybody to do, and there was the pool. So it still, served a purpose for a long time. But once the rides were gone, like you mentioned, you knew then that it was just a question of time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I was thinking about this, and I feel like this park has died 3 times. The first time was in 1971 with the birth of Kings Island, and then it resprung from that, and then the second time was a few years ago. Was this before or after COVID that they removed the rides? I can't remember.
It was right after. I mean, it wasn't long
Yeah,
after.
so they removed the rides, and it's like the Coney Island you knew is now gone, but it's still gonna operate as a water park, and we're excited about the future, and then this, third time's the charm. It looks like even, the historic, Sunlight Pool is gonna be gone as well.
Yeah, and that pool, that's again is part of history. It was the largest recirculating swimming pool in the world. And that's a pretty big place. So it was always kind of special when you would go there to enjoy Sunlight Pool, that you knew that you were in, this world record breaking swimming pool.
Yeah, and it's funny because I had been to Coney Island, several times throughout my life. I was never a season pass holder or anything, but I was like a once or twice a year for a long time. Um, and it was I didn't do the pool until about 2014, 2015, and I'd always heard it was the biggest and stuff, and I walked past it and didn't really understand the scope, but I always thought it was cool that, like, they had to have a lifeguard in a, rowboat in the middle of the deep end because it was so big. You remember
Yes.
that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was huge. They had the slide, in the one end. That was, a big part of my childhood. That was a big deal to climb up that slide, and it seems so big, when you're 5, 6, 7 years old. But a couple of years ago when I went back with some friends that came down from Michigan, the slides, it's still there. So it brings back all those memories of your childhood. And then they had the diving boards at the deeper end, and um, but again, it was just part of that tradition, part of the fabric of my childhood. Was a special place, and there's literally hundreds of thousands of people in the greater Cincinnati area. They're going to have that same thing today, where they're having all those, rekindling all those memories of Coney Island, whatever period of time that they seem to become accustomed to, whether it was pre Kings Island, when it was one of the finest amusement parks out there in the country, or afterward when it was more about Sunlight Pool and then some of the smaller rides.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny, we've talked about this several time on both of our podcasts, but it's grossly appropriate that, so many of us picked up this Goodbye Coney Island book. For you audio listeners,
Hmm.
I've got the Goodbye Coney Island book where they happen to find just hundreds and hundreds of them allegedly in storage at Kings Island. They're all water damaged and
Yeah.
stuff. But that one lays out what they thought was going to be the death of Coney Island. And it didn't happen. So, for those of you who aren't in the Cincinnati market, the short of the whole story is that in 1970, it started in the late 60s, but without getting too complicated, 1971, Coney Island shuts down in favor of moving it up I-71, about 30, what, 20 miles or so, to a little city called Mason, Ohio, to become Kings Island. So the original intention was that they were gonna demolish the park. Then local demand was like, we want this pool, so they kept the pool, and then it was operated as just a pool for about a decade or so, and then they started slowly adding in little family rides and stuff, and they had a SBF, not an SBF Visa, but one of those Galaxy coasters, the Pepsi Python, which was later known as the Python. And then a few years ago, they announced they're going to keep the pool, but they're getting rid of the rides. And then as of today, we found out that the Coney Island has a weird situation where there's a couple different hands in the pot there because part of Coney Island uh, was with River Downs Racetrack, which is now I think Belterra is what they're calling it now. So it's got a racehorse track on it, and then it also has a very large indoor outdoor concert venue called Riverbend on it. The company that owns and operates Riverbend purchased the rest of Coney Island to build this large state of the art venue. I'm also excited about the venue, but I'm far more upset about the Coney Island thing. But Don, why don't you tell me? We've remembered we did a Tower Topics about our memories of Coney Island, as far as what at least your memories of the closing of Coney Island. Can you just talk a little bit once more about some of your favorite memories of going there when it was the premier park in Cincinnati?
Well, I mean, not only Cincinnati, but it was considered one of the finest amusement parks in the country. When Walt Disney was planning to build Disneyland, he and his brother Roy consulted with the Coney Island group, the things they need to do to build an amusement theme park. So when they were building Disneyland, and then conversely, when Coney was thinking of moving everything and building Kings Island, they consulted with Roy Disney about that. So it's funny how those kind of things work out. But no, just a lot of memories. The rides, Tumblebug, flying scooters, which became the Flying Eagles at Kings Island. There was a haunted house attraction I loved. The log flume came in toward the end of Coney's run. That was a big deal when that debuted at Coney Island. They had the Scrambler, the Grand Carousel at Kings Island was there. One of my first amusement rides. They had these rocket ships that went around in circles. That was the last ride I ever did at Coney Island. It was a night ride. I remember that. The roller coaster Shooting Star. My really my lone regret in my career in the amusement theme park industry was not riding that. I had an opportunity to do that on the final day. Went through the line, sat down in the car as they were getting ready to check the lap bars. I chickened out, and you know the next year when I rode the Racer, then I started to regret not riding the Shooting Star at that point. So just memories like that. The Lost River was another ride that was so much fun. My sister and I would ride that over and over again. So just a lot of a lot of memories. And when I would go back, and it was just a shadow of itself at that point. After everything moved to Kings Island in the 70s and 80s, through today even. And the buildings, still brought back memories that were there. You'd see the Moonlight Gardens building and the gift shops and some of the other things around it where some of the games were and stuff. So um, yeah, I mean, it just always rekindled a lot of those memories there, and just a special place. And that really kind of started my interest in the industry, was just being able to go there often as a kid. Now, my family, we didn't go on vacations to Florida and places like that. Our vacations were Coney Island. We lived in a place called Anderson Township, which was about a 15-minute ride to there. So it was something we could do multiple times a year. We would historically go with our cousins on Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day type holidays to just have a day of fun at Coney Island.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, my memories of Coney I was born, a while after Coney Island, became Kings Island, and, but Coney Island was always not irrelevant to me, because, some of my earliest memories of Coney Island were when I was, like, a Cub Scout. When I was little, they used to have their, like, I don't know if they called it a convention or whatever there, but each troop, from around the whole area, like Cincinnati area, so there was like 100 or so, we'd each have their own display, whether it's, how to like ours was how to cook in a Dutch oven one year. I do remember that. And then the one that was most popular was there was a troop that would always build these like rappelling walls so you could rappel down. Um, and I was little, so I wasn't little. I was like probably 10 or so, but the older kids that were like in high school were the ones that like manned the booth there. But I used to go and I would check in with my troop or whatever, but I would mainly, go walk around, ride the rides, and do all those attractions and stuff, so I always look forward to that every year, and I would also attribute that as one of the reasons why I'm, into the parks in general, because there's locally, and I think you and I know this, there are people that are theme park enthusiasts, and there are people that are roller coaster enthusiasts, and there are people that are Kings Island enthusiasts, just like with every other park, but I'm saying from my perspective, but I'm not certain that I would be a theme park enthusiast. I might just be a Kings Island enthusiast if it weren't for me seeing from a young age that like, hey, there's like a lot of community here. There's a lot of like interesting things that can happen here, and having those memories is pretty cool. Now I remember it always happened in the spring, so it would get flooded out quite often, and I think they stopped doing it there for that reason alone, which is a bummer. So it's not like I got to go back throughout my adult life and so on and do that, but I'll always like cherish that. They did it at the convention center for a while, and conventions are cool too, but it was nothing like this. That was just like that just brought back those warm thoughts of remembering to do that. So the thing I would challenge you, for those of you who are listening to this, our Twitter at attractions_GRP. Why don't you tweet at us if you have a memory of Coney Island? Tweet at us your favorite memory. Like when you heard that it was closing, what your thoughts were. Obviously, like frustration, anger, sadness, stuff like that. Where they're all part of the game here. But I'd love to hear like the first memory that popped in your mind when it came to Coney Island closing. But Don, of course, the story doesn't end there. We would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit more about what is replacing it, because the silver lining is that it is still going to remain an entertainment. I think that one thing that you and I never really discussed, but I think you're on the same page as me, is it makes me sick that when they tore down the Cincinnati Gardens, it became a factory. Like if they tore it down and it became something fun, like that would be an easier pill to swallow. But for this, it's going to become a concert venue, which will be the third one on that site, as I mentioned before. So right now there's Riverbend, which is an indoor-outdoor facility that seats in the tens of thousands. Right across from that is PNC Pavilion, which is just like the indoor. When I say indoor, I mean just undercover, like an awning thing. Um, And, this one is, I guess, gonna be bigger. I haven't seen anything about the seating capacity, but let me read the statement that they made. This is the sizzle, and obviously, I'm gonna include, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, the photos of the concepts and stuff, but it says, "Mimi Concerts and Cincinnati Symphony are proud to announce plans for a $118 million state-of-the-art music and entertainment venue at the Coney Island site, creating a one-of-a-kind entertainment campus destined to be a must-play stop for the music industry's top acts." Uh, is it Memi or Mimi? Do you know that? I've always seen it in writing because they were in the fighting for building a venue at the Banks for a while too. Anyway, they aim to create the nation's best amphitheater, positioning Cincinnati among top tier cities and giving it a competitive edge in hosting major music acts. The entertainment complex will complement existing facilities on the live music campus, Riverbend Music Center, and PNC Pavilion, and will usher in the future of the live music industry. That's a pretty dang bold statement right there. The new venue will include state-of-the-art sound system, cutting-edge performance technology, and best-in-class amenities, promising a new dimension of live music experiences at an architecturally stunning facility. The preliminary design is in progress for the facility, with many key decisions yet to be finalized. Additional information will be released in the coming weeks and months, and we'll certainly be covering this, especially in Pick Six, as they start to announce these things, because we're about entertainment, not just about the theme park industry. But that sizzle that they just gave us does sound exciting. If it wasn't for replacing a park, I'd be like super excited about that, right?
It's gonna be incredible. I mean, it's gonna be great, for the Cincinnati area to have a facility like that. It's gonna bring a lot of different acts to Cincinnati. It's gonna create some job opportunities. So it's gonna be great in that respect. Um, what Coney Island, has been for the last few years, I could still go there, and as I walked around the park, not the park, but the grounds, I could visualize in my head. I could remember exactly where things were located, in terms of the rides and, the walking down the midway and, where the shooting star was, which kind of runs into Riverbend. But just to be able to visualize all that stuff. So that'll be a lot harder to do once this, is built and open. You're not going to really have those, be able to have those remnants and be able to mark where things were at that time, as much. It's kind of like when I go to Nashville now, where Opryland used to be, and they've got the big mall and all that kind of thing there, where you can no longer remember what was where. So it's going to be sort of like that. But no, it's going to be a great thing for the Cincinnati area. It's exciting, for the entertainment and music fans. Um, so in that respect, it's going to be a great thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it a point to see a show there. I mean, I am not, and I will not encourage any of our listeners to boycott this venue for Coney Island. The deal's done. You're not stopping anything. You're not affecting anything. We're all sad, but at the same time, this will employ a lot more people than Coney Island ever did. Well, not ever did,
Oh
but
yeah,
did
yeah,
since
and it
'71.
would have been a little tougher pill to digest, before they removed all the rides. And I looked it up right at the beginning. We said right around or right after COVID. It was the fall, September of 2019, when they announced the rides were being removed. So it was going into that COVID year where the rides were no longer there. But that would have been a little bit harder if the rides were still there. But they're not. It's
Mm.
it's a swimming pool, but still, again, a big part of people's lives. And there were a number of people that had season passes for Sunlight pools. So for them, it's going to be sad because that's something that they still did. But there's just a lot of memories that are there. But it's one of those things, Ryan. I always tell people when they ask me about, you mentioned Cincinnati Gardens, is as they could tear down, the building, but they can't erase the memories.
Yeah, I completely agree. They can never take that away from you, and that's one of those gifts that you have for really the rest of your life, is they can't stop that. They can't take away the fact that you rode the little rocket ships as your last ride, or that you didn't, in your case, ride the shooting star. Like, those memories will always be with
Keep
you.
bringing that up, why don't you? No, that's really.
Mm.
I mean, that's still a sore point. I didn't ride the shooting star, but even just when you go down like Kellogg Avenue, and you see the entrance with Coney Island, little, where the parking tolls and that, are at. You drive by and then you see where the turnpike cars were and where the Lake Como train went. I mean, those things all come flooding back every time I'm down in that area. Or I'm coming over from northern Kentucky across the bridge. It all comes flooding back, and I think you know I'm not alone in that. I think there's a lot of people, thousands of people in Cincinnati that remember it.
Do you think they'll keep the arch that you go under to park? That was pretty old.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how you would, keep that there. I think you'd have to kind of, depending on how it all gets laid out with what's going where, you know, it could remain, but I don't know. I don't know how you would keep that. I think there would be a different look to it.
Well, you gotta remember too, we're talking about a huge plot of land because I imagine that, for those of who don't know, although there's 2 venues there, they never run 2 shows at once. It's just logistically impossible. So they have an infrastructure for parking and stuff. So I imagine that it's gonna be the Coney Island plot, and then plus the parking that Coney Island has, which is another 6 or 7 acres, I'd say at least. Yeah, I don't know how
Hmm.
big an acre is, I'm just guessing, but still. So I think it's possible, but again, this just got announced within the last hour, hour and a half. So there's so much we don't know. In fact, they admit in their release that there's so much they don't know. They they have these concept pictures and stuff. They're very blue sky-ish. But speaking of sky, one person did point out that the disappointing thing with this is it appears to be an open air venue, but Cincinnati really needs an indoor venue. We've got the Heritage Bank Center downtown, but that's a very aging venue that's in its 50s. And almost all the other every other major city has replaced their venue or did major renovations, while ours had a sort of renovation in the 90s, and then it's still kind of the same from there.
Yeah, there is a need for a new indoor facility so Cincinnati can have a chance to, um, bid on things like an NCAA basketball tournament, Final Four, something like that. So there is that need. But in the summertime and that, it's not bad to have an outdoor type venue.
I agree, but my issue is we have 3 on that property now,
Mhm.
3 venues that are only good in the summer, but if this were an indoor venue in a similar spirit, they could have events in January. They could I mean, I just don't know what's gonna make this so cutting edge. I'm not doubting it, I'm looking forward to getting more information about that because Cincinnati has had the area has had such an influx of venues in the past couple years.
Mhm.
We got the Icon, Music Center at, the Banks, in downtown Cincinnati near the stadiums. We got the Ovation, which is now got some sort of sponsor name now, which is the same thing as the Banks. PNC Pavilion was about 15 or 20 years ago, so that's marginally new. Riverbend was from the mid-80s. Uh, Timberwolf raised from the dead for a year last year. Tons of new venues, but
Well, let's talk about Timberwolf now that you bring it up. Um, this would appear to not be good news if they ever wanted to get back into the concert business at Kings Island.
you ever heard of the term beating a dead horse, Don? Well, uh, Timberwolf is dead. There's no doubt about it. And this is just beating it still. I feel bad for it. I love Timberwolf. I don't want to go on about Timberwolf, but I really am so glad that Kings Island brought back concerts last year because I really enjoyed attending them there. I think it brings an energy to the park and stuff. So I wish they would do it, but it's never going to happen. There's so much competition now. Um,
Mhm.
but let's get back to Coney Island a little bit because I want to make sure that this is covered. But you talked a lot about your memories from like the 70s and so on. But as far as modern Coney Island is concerned, what was your favorite ride there?
The modern Coney Island?
Yeah, like since
The
they
after Kings after
after
you
Kings
mean
Island, yeah.
after everything with the Kings Island?
Hmm.
Um, I would have to say that they had a carousel. I would say that would be it, or the Dodgem
Okay.
attraction that they had. I like those 2. Um, so yeah, I would go with those 2 rides.
Yeah, I would say they've got an old Eli Bridge cable driven uh, Ferris wheel, or at least they did. And that was my favorite because it's if ever you were to appreciate modern technology, just what the so I got friends that are like that were rides managers there, and it's like to work the Ferris wheel, you basically have to have a PhD in theme park rides because it has to be perfectly weighted. You have to know like, okay, a little bit of rain's okay, but if it crosses this threshold, absolutely not. And if it did rain last night, you have to be able to make that judgment call of like, it's not gonna it can't run today, or yes, it can because the cables slip. So that's one of my favorite, and, carousels or I'm sorry, Ferris wheels are just really enjoyable in general, and classic too,
Yeah,
if
I
you like
enjoyed
Ridge.
that. Yeah, I enjoyed that too. Um, It wasn't called the Dodge, but the bumper cars, we'll call it that, that were there. Those were pretty good. I mean, it had enough room to kind of, get up a little bit of speed in that. So I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, and then, I take you back to, and I'm gonna paraphrase here. I tried to find the audio for this, but I couldn't with a quick search, but, Gary Walks's speech at the closing before the fireworks in 1971, Labor Day 1971, where we start these new memories at Kings Island will be beyond your wildest dreams and stuff. So locally here, we are very lucky that we do still have Kings Island. So the Coney Island of the past is dead, and it has been since 71. um, and, holding on for dear life is kind of I mean, it did thrive. Business-wise, it did thrive for years, but as far as, like, being the grand theme park that it once was, if you look at the photos and stuff from the '70s and '60s, and it just this was very much a carnival compared to, what Coney Island was, you know?
Just a shadow of what it was, my memories from the late 60s, to 71, of it. It was never, and you always thought that, when I would go and, you would ride some of the rides they had. And they were good flat rides. They had a nice little collection there. Um, but you would do that and, maybe go into Sunlight Pool, and it wasn't the same because you kept thinking about what it used to be.
Yeah, and that's true with anything, and especially theme parks. If they put in a new ride where they removed your favorite ride, that's all you're going to be able to think about, at least for a while. But this is a whole park, so this is a whole portion of people's childhood that was partially moved and partially destroyed. So I completely understand the nostalgia, but so
I think it started out as like an apple farm back in, the 1800s, and James Parker,
mhm.
he started it by renting out his 400 acres of land for picnics, and it just kind of evolved from there.
Yeah, it's so he started it back in 1867. James Parker founded Parker's Grove. And then he later sold it in 1886 for $17,500. Man, if Coney Island were for sale for $17,500, I think we should go halfsies on it. That'd be pretty cool.
If it was for sale for that, I definitely would have had interest in buying it just for that nostalgia piece of it.
Well, not just that, I feel like just but between you and I feel like we could probably make it pretty successful, but uh
We could have made a go of it.
we definitely could have, but, there are 2 really great ways to, in the next several weeks, if you're listening to this early on, kinda pay tribute to Coney Island. First of all is, attending the Night of Lights, which is a drive-through thing that's actually through Coney Island, and it's through a lot of the areas where there were rides, and, it's all very historic and stuff. Also, Entertainment Junction has, um a Coney Island display that's Coney Island circa 1967. We actually did an Attractions Group podcast episode on it, so you can go there. It's not the Coney Island that you would have known as a kid if you're in my age bracket, but more like if you're in Don's age bracket, if you know what I mean. But those are two.
That definitely, Ryan. I highly recommend going to Entertainment Junction and
Mhm.
checking out the Coney Island display, because if you are someone that did experience it in its last 5 or 6 years, it will definitely rekindle those memories. And you just when we were there, I just wanted to keep looking at things, and then I would remember riding the tumble bug and remember riding the other rides, everything but the shooting star. I remember riding.
Hmm. What do you think it would have been like to ride the Shooting Star?
Well, I think I would have then had zero regrets in my career in the industry.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I guess I should say follow us on all your favorite podcast apps, Apple, Google, Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. We do a video version. We often throw in photos. Don makes funny faces when I get facts wrong or mispronounce stuff. So that's kind of worth your price of admission. Follow us on Twitter/X at attractions_GRP. Check out Don's blog. I'm sure you're going to be blogging about this at themeparksbydon.com. Link in the description, of course. Yeah, kind of a bummer, and, this is our first breaking news episode, but Thanks for listening, everybody. For because we're literally recording these things 12 hours apart. We've never done that before, but
No, we haven't.
yeah. So not really the way that I thought this next episode was going to go, but you know,
Well, I'll close with this, Ryan. It's something that I was, once told, and it's kind of something that resonated with me. Whenever there are things like this that, get torn down, removed, um, renovated, it's okay to respect history, but you can't revere it. You have to keep making progress and move forward to the future.
right. And again, I mean, it is staying in the entertainment aspect, so that definitely softens the blow. But yeah, so thanks for listening to putting up with us twice this week, everybody. Until next time.